when you have a nonprofit, you want to have at least 3 board members. You want a president, at least. You want a president, you want a treasurer, and you want a secretary. Your president is the person that is going to overlook and run the board. They're running the things that need to happen. They're running the infrastructure of your nonprofit. The treasurer is over the money. They are handling all of the money, the funding that comes in, how you spend the money, how it's allocated, where it goes, if any dues come in, anything that deals with money, your treasurer is running that, and they are reporting out at every meeting what is coming in and what is going out. Your secretary is the person that is keeping your board meeting minutes. Very important to have your board meeting minutes. Every meeting. When is it adjourned? When did it start? Who was there? What did we talk about? All those things need to be in board meeting minutes, and you need to sign them. Your secretary needs to sign them. And I would advise at the end of the year, you bind every meeting minute for that year.
You're listening to the Black to Business podcast, an educational podcast providing Black entrepreneurs with the tools and resources to start and grow their businesses. We chat with vetted Black entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and business owners as they provide tips and resources to help take your business to the next level. I'm your host, Monique T. Marshall. Here on Black to Business, we are all about purpose-driven work. And today we want to touch on doing business a different way and actually creating an organization that allows you to use your business talent, education, and experience for the good of humanity or the natural world. Today we're talking about all things nonprofit. Now, nonprofit is a subject that we don't talk about often on the show, but still, we know that it's an area of interest for many, so we want to make sure that we can get someone on the show that could really dive into the ins and outs of how to start and maintain a nonprofit organization. Joining us on the show today is nonprofit consultant Christi McDaniel, who is also the founder of The Power Legacy, where she helps those interested in nonprofit organizations start and grow. She also assists with grant writing and sponsorship assistance and nonprofit management, just to name a few. So during this conversation, we're going to touch on some of the things you should know before starting a nonprofit organization, the actual process of starting a nonprofit, some of the key players you need to have in place for your organization, and the different ways to fund your nonprofit. And we're touching on so much more. This is another masterclass episode, so grab your notepad and keep listening. Christi, welcome to the Black to Business podcast. We are excited about today's conversation, and I just want to welcome you to the show. So welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So I always like to start off by introducing my guests, letting them get familiar with you. So if you could just share a little bit about who you are, what is it that you do in your business, and how did you get where you are today?
Okay, so I am Christi McDaniel, and I am the owner of The Power Legacy. And what I do is I assist entrepreneurs in starting their own business. I first started with doing LLCs and nonprofits, but I have niched down and I'm focusing more on the nonprofit aspect. And I started that because I have a nonprofit of my own, Children Striving Together, and I've had that nonprofit for 8 years. It'll actually be 9 years on March 18th, which is crazy to think. And because of that, I decided that I wanted to become an entrepreneur once I was laid off of a job. And I wanted to focus on really helping implementing nonprofits for business owners, as well as understanding the proper way to start a nonprofit, what it takes to keep a nonprofit and sustain it, as well as talking about if you are ready for grant writing and for the funding aspect within your nonprofit.
Love it. And congratulations on your upcoming anniversary.
Thank
you.
You.
You're welcome. And I love that you talked about like niching down and knowing that you wanted to niche down, because honestly, that's how we discovered you. Honestly, we were looking for someone who could really talk about nonprofit organizations, and we came across what you were doing. So I love that you said that. And I think that, that's how you really find your people.
Yeah.
So Yeah, and that's why today's topic is about nonprofit organizations, how to start them, what's the details. So I'm excited because I know we have some people in the audience who are interested in starting a nonprofit organization, or like you also help people do sustain and maintain their nonprofit organizations.
Correct.
So yeah, so I want to start with the basics. Christy, if you could just break it down in what is a nonprofit organization and some of the major differences between a nonprofit organization and the different business entities.
Okay, so a nonprofit organization is structured as a charity to do something, solve some type of need or some type of eyesore that is happening in the community. Sometimes that can be anything from, providing programming for youth, helping the elderly, helping the sick, whatever it is that you want to do. You have a mission, you have a vision, and you are doing something for the betterment of the community and others. What people don't really know is that when it comes to nonprofits are never the person that founded it. So if I am a founder of a nonprofit, it does not belong to me. It belongs to charity and to the community, which is why you have board members who come on and they make sure that you are doing everything in your power to stick to the mission and the vision of a nonprofit, or why you said that you were going to do this amazing thing. And the IRS allows organizations such as nonprofits to be tax exempt because of the better good that you are doing for the community. So the difference between a nonprofit and an LLC or a regular corporation or a partnership is the fact that, for one, you are a tax exempt entity. As long as you elect it, you are a tax exempt entity and you are able to receive funding for whatever the thing is that you're doing, and you don't have to pay taxes. When you have an LLC or a corporation or a partnership, depending on what state you are and where you're located, you are paying taxes on an organization, and you cannot get tax write-offs, or someone can't say, I'm going to donate $5,000 and I'm going to write it off as a tax exemption if you are not a nonprofit.
Perfect. Thank you for breaking that down. Okay, so what would you say are the benefits of a nonprofit organization? I know that you mentioned the tax exemption. So any other benefits?
I would say some of the benefits include the tax exemption, of course. Another benefit is being able to do something for the community as a whole. That would be a benefit. Being able to solve a problem or solve a need in the way that you would like to, that would be a benefit for for a nonprofit. And just being able to take a group of individuals and put them together and allow you to make decisions, vote, do something positive for the community. Anytime I hear about a nonprofit, I'm thinking of you're doing something to bring positive change or to bring a positive light to a specific area. And it's not always the underserved areas, because people think, oh, nonprofit, you're doing something for the common good. It has to be in an underserved area or somewhere that doesn't have. But that's not necessarily true, because if your nonprofit is to help bring awareness to cancer patients don't have a tax bracket on them. You could be rich, you could be poor, you could be wealthy, you could be in between. But if you need assistance as a cancer patient and you start this nonprofit to assist with that, then it doesn't matter where you come from or what your background is. So I think those things alone are some great reasons to why you will want to start a nonprofit, and those are some benefits.
Yeah, I definitely love that you mentioned that the just the differentiators, like there is no tax, differences in the tax and all of that. But in terms of like the level of wealth that someone has, it doesn't make a difference. But oftentimes when I do think about, like you said, a nonprofit organization, I know that person is, or that organization is doing something beyond the individual.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. And also, would you touch on the different types of nonprofits, if there are any? Your thoughts on that?
So there definitely are different nonprofits, because you have the nonprofits that are tax exempt most nonprofits are tax exempt, but you have the nonprofits that are for charities, public works, so doing things of that nature. But then you have the nonprofits that are churches. So churches are nonprofits. Some of them have 501c3s. Then you have the membership type nonprofits. So like if you're a fraternity or a sorority or some type of social club, you have a nonprofit, but you're not a 501c3. You may be a 509A4 or a 501c, whatever that number is at the end. That just lets you know what type of tax bracket you're in or what type of exemption you have. So you have the fraternities and the sororities. You have the people that are the nonprofits that are on the political side. So you have the people that are like, if you think about the city, and you have council members and they meet and they have a 50, they have a nonprofit status, but it's for people that are in the political arena of things. So you have a nonprofit of that. But then you also have private foundations. So you have the nonprofits that are for the public charities. So they are tax exempt. But then you have the private foundations where most of their funding comes in from donors or investors. So like if you have a group of people that are like, hey, I have the Carter family wants to start a nonprofit organization or a foundation because whatever that is, but we want all of our family to be on the board. If you were doing something to that effect, you would be considered a private foundation, because if you are going in and putting family members on your nonprofit board, if you have more than 25% of family members on a board, it's automatically frowned upon from the IRS because people do self-dealing, people embezzle. So many different things happen when you put a family together for a nonprofit public charity. But if you do it on the foundation side and you're a private foundation, you can have all the family members you want, but you're still doing nonprofit work. It's just the way that it's the type of nonprofit is a little different and the status is a little different.
Wow, you definitely just broke it down because I did not know all of that. So I know people are just learning something here. So I appreciate you for breaking that down for us.
No problem.
Yeah, so now that we have the different types of nonprofits, so someone is thinking, okay, this is something I've been thinking about. What types of business ideas or models do you feel are best suited for nonprofits, if any?
So I'm glad you said that, because a lot of times when people go into nonprofits, they don't think about having a business plan, having a business model, and things of that nature. Those are very, very important because infrastructure is everything. If you are having a nonprofit organization and you don't have a business plan or a strategic plan, shall I say, not necessarily a business plan, but a strategic plan is in place to have your goals, your objectives, what's going to happen in month 1 versus month 2 versus quarter 1 versus quarter 2 and things of that nature, then it is hard to sustain your nonprofit, because one thing you want to have when you're doing a nonprofit is you want to figure out at least 5 to 10 streams of income, revenue streams of income, because if not, you cannot depend on just grants. If you're a nonprofit that is depending 100% on grants solely, that means that you are not a sustainable nonprofit, because grants are 50-50. You could write a grant and you can get it, or you could write a grant and not get it. So what happens when you have all these programs, you have this $1 million budget, $500,000 budget, even a $50,000 budget. You have that, but you have no money, and you wrote 25 grants and you didn't get any one of them. When that happens, how is your nonprofit going to move forward? How are you going to bless the community? How are you going to do the things that you're going to do besides self-funding? And don't let you lose a job because self-funding goes away, because now you have no money at all. So the best thing to do when you are starting a nonprofit is, yes, the paperwork and all that stuff. But for one, is to have a good infrastructure. Your infrastructure starts with your board. People put anybody on the board as placeholders just to start a nonprofit. I have a nonprofit and my friend Shay gonna be on it, and then we're gonna use Alan and all these different people, but they have no knowledge of how to even do a nonprofit. They don't even know that the president is supposed to be the top person on this board, making sure that you guys are doing everything and you guys have goals and objectives and things of that nature. So with that being said, when it comes to the nonprofit, your board is very, very important. But right after the board, you're going to go right into your strategic planning. So what is our budget? How many programs are we utilizing? How much money is this going to cost? Who are we contacting to bring in this money? Is it grants? Are we going to put on some events? Are we doing fundraising? And if so, what type? All of that goes into your strategic planning session. And you should always do that. I want to say like between 3 and 5 months before your new fiscal year or before your new calendar year. Because you want to be ready. When you're starting a new year in the beginning of your fiscal or calendar year, you want all that money to already be there. Because when we are that's like living paycheck to paycheck within a nonprofit. If I don't have the money right now readily available and it's January and we're about to start programming, what's going to happen is we're going to be asking all these people if they could donate and give us money. And the event or the program that we are putting on is going to be contingent to us receiving those funds. And when we don't receive them, what happens? You cancel it. And now no one can benefit from it. So I think that you can definitely write out a good business plan, but it's not going to be in like an investor type business plan. Everyone needs a business plan because it just gives you, it's a plan. It's a plan of what you're going to do. It's like a vision board of your nonprofit. It's like a vision board to the nonprofit. So yes, we need the plan, but now we need to strategize on how we're going to execute this plan. When you create a vision board, you put all these things on your vision board, and then this is what I want to do, but there's no direction on that vision board. So now when we do our strategic plan, we are strategizing on how we're going to accomplish this.
I'm so glad that you said that because, one of the things we really push on Black to Business is getting that proper foundation. And like you mentioned, that strategic planning is very key. And just touching on some of the things you said, like some of the key things to know before starting a nonprofit. Kristen, what do you find are some of the common misconceptions that people have before they're starting their nonprofit organization?
Common misconceptions are, one, that if you have a nonprofit, you don't get paid. That's the biggest misconception. Nonprofit equals no money because it's nonprofit. No, that's not what it means. A nonprofit, you are not for profit because you are literally not for profit. Anything that I do within this nonprofit is not for gain of self. If I have a for-profit and I'm selling trash cans, I'm selling these trash cans because I am trying to make money for myself and a living for self. That is why I started this business. If you are doing a nonprofit, you're not trying to, your goal is not to make money for yourself. Now, of course, you can be a salary employee and things of that nature, but the profit is not for self. The profit is for the benefit of the community. That is what you are. If any profit is coming in, that is what is helping. So that's why it's called a nonprofit. But then when it comes to, can you get paid? Yes, you can. Now, if you are a board member, no, you cannot get paid because board members being paid is frowned upon, and board members should not be paid because, again, if you are giving money from a grant to a nonprofit and then you get $100,000, you have 5 board members and you're paying them all $20,000, then where did the nonprofit even get the money? They never did. You have to pay the board first. So that's one of the misconceptions, definitely the money part. Or being paid. Another misconception is when I start a nonprofit, I'm going to just get these grants and these donations and I'm going to be able to do whatever I want. The reason why I say that as a misconception is because, yes, you can get grants. Yes, you can get donations, but it's a gamble. None of that is guaranteed. None of that money is guaranteed. So if you decide, you know what, I want to get free clothes to the homeless, I'm going to go ahead and start a nonprofit because if I do that, I'm going to be able to get all the clothes and people going to donate them to me, and then I'm going to have people write it off. But what if you start that nonprofit and no one wants to donate to you? Then what? So I think that that's another misconception, just not being ready and understand. I always tell people when you start a nonprofit, whether you're going to do it for a small amount of time, because people think when you do a nonprofit, that means forever. You don't have to have a nonprofit forever. You can have a goal, or someone could have told you, or you could have had this mastermind plan that you want to start this nonprofit and you only want to do it for 5 years because you want to help the world for 5 years. And after that, you're going to go to your next thing. You can do that. That is perfectly fine to do. But you have to also understand that when you do something, You have a vision. You have a goal in mind. And for me, my goal and my vision and my being of what I'm doing is I'm not doing something to make a stamp today and try to reap the benefits tomorrow. I am making a stance because if I leave this world and I don't see the change that I want to see, at least I started somewhere and generations to come can continue it. Like, I really think, really go into thinking about something like a nonprofit or even not really a business, because, sometimes things come and go. We're living in an innovative world. But if you're trying to, like a Martin Luther King or a Rosa Parks or a Maya Angelou, do you think that they went into what they were doing and what they stood for and the activism that they were standing for, saying, do you think Martin Luther King was like, man, one day I'm going to do this speech, I have a dream speech, and it's going to change generations for years to come? Like, I don't know if he thought that. I think he went into it trying to do the work for that moment. And it just so happened to be bigger than probably what he thought it was going to be. But we still live by some of those things that these people are, the people that came before us, did for us to be able to get out of what we're in. So, I just think that those are just some of the magical or the big myths that people say. I'm gonna start a nonprofit and I'm automatically gonna get grants. You could be the best writer in the world. You could be literally the best writer in the world and still not get a grant because it didn't pull on the heartstrings the way that the grantor who's giving you the money wanted it to. Sometimes it's just as easy as that. It's not you didn't write good. It's not you couldn't spell. It's not you didn't use the right words. It's just that they read somebody else's grant application and it pulled on their heartstrings a little bit more, or what they stood for, they could relate to more than what you wrote. Sometimes it's just literally that.
And speaking of reality, that's the reality. So glad, love that you mentioned that. And then also, I know that you were talking about, and what we love to do on the Black Citizens podcast is like break it down so a fifth grader can understand. Right. But you mentioned the board of directors. You also mentioned the president and some of the members. So I want to kind of, before we proceed, talk about some of the key people, the key requirements that have to be met in order to start a nonprofit and maintain.
So in order to maintain a nonprofit, one of the key requirements, of course, besides being incorporated with the IRS and with the state that you live in, is to have a board. Now, it varies from state to state. Some boards you are allowed to have one person. Some you're allowed to have three. Most is three. So we're going to use the 3 number. Okay. When you have a nonprofit, you want to have at least 3 board members. You want a president, you want a treasurer, and you want a secretary. Your president is the person that is going to overlook and run the board. They're running the things that need to happen. They're running the infrastructure of your nonprofit. The treasurer is over the money. They are handling all of the money, the funding that comes in, how you spend the money, how it's allocated, where it goes, if any dues come in, anything that deals with money. Your treasurer is running that, and they are reporting out at every meeting what is coming in and what is going out. Your secretary is the person that is keeping your board meeting minutes. Very important to have your board meeting minutes. Every meeting. When is it adjourned? When did it start? Who was there? What did we talk about? All those things need to be in board meeting minutes, and you need to sign them. Your secretary needs to sign them. And I would advise at the end of the year, you bind every meeting minute for that year. Because in the event that you ever get audited, you don't want to be trying to figure out what happened at a board meeting and write up some notes real quick, and then it just doesn't make sense. If it's binded, that means that it was done. You can't touch it. I can go back to 2017, pull out those board meeting minutes, and no one can try to say this happened or this didn't happen. So you have to have your board meeting minutes. So that's what your secretary would do on top of like filing paperwork and things of that nature. Those are 3 key components. But another key person that needs to be within the nonprofit is your CEO. So your chief executive officer. That person, so like the president is over the infrastructure and making sure that the infrastructure is together. Your CEO is over the implementation. like the implementation of the programming and the services and the resources that you have within the nonprofit. The CEO is a paid person. Some people think that the CEO and the president can be the same person. So people will be like, I'm the founder, I'm the president, not the founder. I'm the president and CEO of my nonprofit. But you can't be the president and the CEO, because the president is the person that hires and fires the CEO. So you already are at a conflict right there. So your CEO most of the time is someone that you hire on to become a part of your nonprofit. Now, what can happen is your founder can be the CEO as long as you are not a voting member. So like if I am the founder of Children Striving Together and I am also operating as the CEO, I am not a board member and I do not vote. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't put my board meetings together. It doesn't mean that I don't attend, and it doesn't mean that I don't have a say, because I will always have a say as a founder and as a CEO. But when it comes time to that vote, I cannot vote. I am a non-voting member. But again, I have a say. And that's why you want your board to be odd. You want an odd number, because who's going to be a tiebreaker? So you always if you vote and it's 2 and 2, then what? What happens? You can talk to the founder, but if the founder is not a voting member, they can't vote anyway. So now you're stuck. You're stuck. You're at a crossroad. So those are the main things. What I always tell people is do not rush to put people in these seats. If you have to figure it out before you file your 501c3, you have your nonprofit, you're implemented, you're starting to do the work, but you don't have a person that's in those 3 seats, wait to file that 501c3. Yes, it takes 90 days to process it, at the least 90 days to process it, but you would rather wait and have the right person than rush and have the wrong person. You do not want that. So you will wait on that. And then some people are like, well, I want to have 9 board members and I only have 4, or I only have 5. Okay, that's okay. You only have 5 right now, but continue to do the work. And when the right person is meant to come, or you interview the right person, then they'll be able to fill that seat. Another important factor with just the president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, vice president, you can have if you choose, but it's not necessary, but you can. It's just to make sure your bylaws are together. That's a whole nother topic, but bylaws are another important thing that needs to happen with your nonprofit. You cannot have a nonprofit without bylaws. They're like the land of the law. They're like the Constitution to the United States. They're like the everything. You need to have bylaws, and you have to read them, because a lot of people use templates and just, I'm going to use this template. I'm going to put my name right there. And now you operate in a way that you don't even know you want to operate. So yes, you can use a template to be a stepping stone to make sure you're doing things the right way, but you need to read and understand it. And if it's words you don't understand, you need to define them. And if you need to get a lawyer to help you understand it, then that is what you should do, because you could be setting yourself up to be removed from your own nonprofit because your bylaws are not right. And that's what happens a lot of times.
We're definitely going to get into that. And I think that you are just further driving home. So one of the things we always talk about is it's just that it's a process. And like you talked about, like legacy building, it's a process that we have to take the time to do, especially as Black entrepreneurs, as Black business people. We really have to take time to do this process. So I appreciate you for breaking that down. And I love the tip of, 3. I have no idea about the nonprofit industry, but that's why you're here, because I don't know either. So love that. So before we get into the protecting your nonprofit organization, I want to talk about the process. So you've broken down the key things that we need to have in place and why and we should start a nonprofit. But I want to talk about the process of forming an organization. So if you could discuss like some of the paperwork, like the articles of incorporation and applying for tax exemption status and all of that, please do.
Yeah, so some of the things the key things that you need is, for one, your articles of incorporation. When you are a nonprofit, you are doing articles of incorporation. If someone tells you to do articles of organization, they're speaking of the wrong type of entity. So for nonprofits, you are doing articles of incorporation. That is what you do one time, and that's when you first do it. You never have to do that form again. The next form you're doing is your statement of information. Your statement of information is due every other year. most times it's due either on an even year or odd year. If you are a company that started in an even year, then it's going to probably be due every even numbered year. But I will always check with the Secretary of State, because some states may want you to do it every year. In the state of California, we are asked to do it every other year, and it's either an even or odd year. And it'll tell you on the website when it's due. So that is a form that is due. And the statement of information is just allowing the state to keep up with where you are. You could have moved, you could have changed CEOs or treasurers or whatever. So you want to make sure that you're keeping people up to date with that. That's one. Another thing is your EIN number. For whatever reason, people love to make an EIN number before they even have a business. I don't know why they do this, but I promise you, if I could put it on the hand of 100 people, because I serviced 167 people last year. So out of the 167 people, I promise you, probably 60 of them said, I already got an EIN number. And I'm like, how? Because what if your business name doesn't get approved because somebody else has it and you didn't make this EIN number? So please, if you're listening out there, do not do an EIN number until that step is ready. And that's after you are successfully a nonprofit. But your EIN number is a thing. You would need that. Your EIN number is going to be like your social security number to your nonprofit, aka your tax ID number. EIN number and tax ID number, it's the same thing. So that's one. And then the bylaws. Your bylaws, again, one of the most important documents of your nonprofit. So making sure you have your bylaws. You are not required to send them to the IRS, but you can. And anytime you update it, you want to send the update, because you don't ever want to have anything out there that's outdated. Because if you update the bylaws and you didn't put it anywhere, then how do we know your bylaws are updated? So bylaws are a very important document. Another important document is your budget. I'm talking about budget outlined to the T. I'm talking about if you're telling me that you need to buy a piece of string because you need to tie something for whatever, every single thing needs to be on your budget, literally mapped out. And it should be a projected line. I mean, there's a way to do the budget, but you should always be projecting what you think you want to bring in. And then you have actually what you did bring in, so that every year you can be like, oh man, we said we was going to spend $50,000 on this. We only spent 37. Let's lower this. Or we said we was going to spend $50,000 and we went way over budget. We spent 70. What do we need to cut? So a budget is something that's important. And then depending on the state that you're in, there are forms that need to happen with the Attorney General's office. So in the state of California, if you're going to have an event and you're selling raffle tickets, you need approval for that. So you see a lot of people that's just doing raffle tickets. Oh, I'm going to raffle this and I'm going to raffle that. And they're not even approved for that. And you literally can get fined if they find out that you were doing raffle tickets and you did not get the proper permission to do that. So some things are a little different depending on states. But for California, because that's where I am, we do have to have a form that's in there with the raffles. And then there's a form that we have to fill out the minute you receive your first dollar that comes into the nonprofit. The minute you do you receive that first dollar amount, there is a registration form that needs to be done, because you have to keep this up every year. And then the last important key is how you are filing. Like, yes, we don't pay taxes, but we still file a 990 form, which is like equivalent to the 1040 that we file when we do our taxes. So we do the state and we do we get our state and we get our federal. So our federal will be considered the 990, which is for, the state. I mean, the IRS, the federal form that we fill out. Again, it doesn't mean you have to pay, but you have to fill that out. And then the 199, it's equivalent to our state version. So the 199 is something that you have to file every year as well. The reason why you have to make sure what form is for your state is because you can be suspended for not filing these forms. If you do not file these forms, you can be suspended, and it takes time to get your tax exempt status back, or to even get your nonprofit out of a suspended status. So these are things that you have to file every year, and you have to make sure that you know which forms are yours, because no matter what, when you start a nonprofit, they do not care if you do not know. If you're not knowledgeable and you didn't file a form, like you unintentionally filed a form because you didn't know, they don't care. Because they're going to think, why did you start a nonprofit and not understand every document needed to be done before you started it? So we're going to find you. So, so those are things. So again, just to recap, your articles of incorporation, your statement of information, your EIN number, your bylaws, your budget, your federal and your state tax forms. Again, don't get it confused. Like, oh, I thought we don't have to file. We don't have to pay. You don't have to pay for certain things. Like the 990, you're not gonna. It's probably certain things are like the Attorney General form is probably like $25 to file the form. But once you start making a certain amount of money, if you make over $20,000 or over $50,000, for example, it may be zero to $25,000, maybe $0. But then $25,000 to $75,000, you may have to pay $25 for the form. So it's not taxes that you're paying, but there are fees for certain forms. So those are the main things that you must do when starting a nonprofit.
Perfect. So now you all have it, so you will not be out here lost.
Right.
So now I know that you mentioned before, and I also know that you did a video recently on this, just some tips for protecting your nonprofit organization.
Yes. So some tips. The main tip, honestly, let me just put it like this. The main tip, or main tips, shall I say, one is your bylaws. Your bylaws are very important. Your bylaws it's what can possibly get rid of you or keep you. When it comes to that, the main reasons why founders get quote unquote fired from their own nonprofit, because you'll hear like someone say, I got fired. You're always going to be a founder. It doesn't matter who comes along or who doesn't come along. You will always be the founder of a nonprofit. That can never get taken away. But what can get taken away is you being a CEO. So you're a CEO, you're a paid person, but you're not doing anything. You're not doing the work. You're not bringing in any money. You're not meeting right. And your board feels that you are not fit for this job. If they feel that way, they can fire you as a CEO. That is what people get confused about. And I think the big confusion or the big misconception comes in because people are not thinking when it comes to their nonprofit. If you're doing everything the way you're supposed to be doing them, and your vision and your mission and all of those goals continue to align, there's no reason why anyone should be letting you go. So what happens is in your nonprofit, people put founders clauses inside of their bylaws. And a founders clause is basically something saying, as a founder, in the event that I'm incapacitated or I can no longer operate the nonprofit or whatever the case may be, this person is going to step in. Or most times people put like someone of blood relation, like a daughter or an auntie or a cousin or a sister or a brother, something to that effect. It will go into your founder's clause. This is probably going to go over some people's head, but there is such thing as an ex officio board member. And that basically means that you are a board member and you don't have, you are basically saying that you're going to be on the board, but you're just not, you're not a voting member, but you have a lot of say when it comes to doing certain things within the nonprofit. So what you really want to do to protect yourself, the only real protection is making sure that your bylaws are correct and making sure that you vet your board members. And when I say vet your board members, I mean, you start writing out all these different things that you want them to have. So if you are utilizing a secretary, if you have a secretary that does not take good notes, I don't think they qualify automatically. I'm not saying that you have to put the education and all that kind of stuff in there, but you do have to make sure that they meet certain criteria. Are you timely? Are you organized? Can you write meeting minute notes? Are you going to be able to attend 2/3 of the events that's happening within the nonprofit? Things of that nature is going to let you know whether you are fit to be a board member, or maybe you are a really, really good person and I really liked you in the interview, but you don't have board qualities, but you would make a great volunteer. Why? We can still use you. You can still be a part.
Right.
So those are really the things when it comes to the liability portion of it and protecting. You're protecting by making sure your bylaws are done properly and making sure that you choose the right board members. Because if you don't choose the right board members, you're going to do all the work and then you're going to be burnt out and then you're going to give up and you're going to say, I don't want to do this no more because it's not worth it. So that's the protection part.
Yes. And so before we wrap it up, we of course have to talk about the money. So I want to talk about funding your organization and what are some suggested and different ways to fund a nonprofit organization, and also the thoughts that people have around. I know that you mentioned before, like people assume you won't get paid. So just like the different ways to fund.
So fundraising is like the number one thing, the biggest thing. And the crazy thing about fundraising is, or the fun and unique thing about fundraising is you can be as creative as you want because it's your nonprofit. If you want to host a skate night and charge $20 a person, or you want to host a gala, you want to do a bake sale, whatever that thing is that you want to do to bring in money, you fundraise. You want to fundraise. That is a way that you're going to bring in funding for the nonprofit. The second thing is you're going to be reaching out for corporate sponsors. Corporate sponsors or any type of sponsor. Sponsorships equal money. Yes, I will hang your banner inside of my event and put you on my marketing material and you can send me a check for $10,000. I'll gladly do that.
Right.
You know, you want to make sure that your funders, your sponsors, you know, you want to make sure that they make sense. Like, I'm not going to have a weed dispensary sponsor my kids. Like, that just doesn't go hand in hand. So you do want to make sure that you're just being, you know, and that's just being honest, because some people will be like, nah, it's money. No, it's not just money, because other people are looking at this. So corporate sponsors is something. Individual donors, so that's the people that's in your arena, in your area, in your circle. You know, hey, would you be a monthly donor, or you want to do a one-time donation? Some people are like, yeah, I'm gonna donate $20 today. Great. But then some people are like, man, you know what? My job has a matching program, and you know, I want to donate $100 a month. That's money that's going to come in every month that you can say is another stream of revenue. Or even the employee matching programs. A lot of people can go within their jobs. They can volunteer at a specific place, send the paperwork to their job, and their job will pay the nonprofit because this employee volunteered at an event, or they will even match something. Oh, this employee donated $250. Okay, well, our job matches. We're going to match that. So you get $250. The job is matching $250. You got $500. A lot of places do that. So that's ways of funding. And then, of course, we have the grants. Automatically, we know that that's a big funding stream is the grants. And then like program costs. Like if you're charging fees for members to be a part of something, that helps. Membership fees. If you're charging that, maybe you have an event and you're teaching a class within the nonprofit and you're teaching dance, and Debbie Allen is coming to teach the dance class. That's like a big time person. So we're going to charge $120 for Debbie Allen to come and teach this class, and 100% of the proceeds go to the nonprofit. That's another way to bring in funding. So those are just a few ways to, to consider funding streams for the nonprofit to come in, bringing money in.
Love it. And shout out to Debbie Allen. We all know she gets down. So
yes.
That's so funny. Christi, this has been so amazing. And you have really just broken down everything and gave us so much value. And I know you mentioned the amount of clients you were able to help last year. And I'm sure this year is starting out with a banger for you. And people who are listening, they're like, okay, I need your help. So what are some of the ways that the Power Legacy has been able to, or does, assist aspiring nonprofit owners with getting started and also maintaining, and talk about some of the offerings in your process?
Yeah, so of course, if you were to go to thepowerlegacy.com, I do offer free 15-minute consultations to understand and see what it is that you want to do. I am not a person that is just here only to make money. I want to make sure that the people that are starting these nonprofits are doing them the right way and actually doing a service to our community and not a disservice to the community. So I talk it out with potential clients just to see what kind of assistance that they're needing or if it even makes sense. And I will be honest if it doesn't make sense. So we do the 15-minute consultation. After that, if you decide that you are ready to start a nonprofit, then, I send you all the documentation to get started. And I do offer payment plans in regards to basically payment plans where you could break the payments up, because I know when you're starting a nonprofit, the hardest part is like trying to find the money. And you're like, I'm trying to do this nonprofit. I want to do it, but the fee is a lot. So I do allow that because of that. And then twice a year, I do pro bono work. So I do have it where people can apply for a certain program. So if you're trying to start a nonprofit or you're trying to get grant writing or whatever the case may be, I will do pro bono based off of who I feel really, really needs the help. And that means 100% free. So if you're trying to start a nonprofit and it's my pro bono time, I'm going to start your entire nonprofit for free, because pro bono work. And I really want to hone in on that, because a lot of times people can't afford it and they have a great idea or they really can execute it, but they just don't have the money. And I think that there's a lot of people that, do pro bono work. And that just shows that you're actually being an asset to the community as well, not just financially, but you're helping in other ways too. So I assist with grant writing. I assist with the nonprofit. I do audits. I do strategic planning sessions. If you just need me to come in and listen in on a board meeting because you just can't get this to these people, I can be the bad guy for you. I do anything that is going to help. I help you with your budgets. If you need financial assistance advice in regards to like looking at something and trying to understand why this did or didn't work, all of those things, anything that you could think of under the nonprofit umbrella, I am able to assist with. And I do have pricing available for anyone that is interested. And because I really, really enjoy just talking, you reaching out to me in regards to this podcast, if anyone is listening today and they are in need of starting, I will offer a 15% discount. I will give you the code and you can give it to your listeners how you would like to. And then I will be able to help that. And I will honor that for the year of 2022, because I do not push anyone to start just because they thought about it. I want you to really think about this, because when you start a business, it's like having a baby. I mean, to some degree. I mean, you can't get rid of baby because you could dissolve a business. You can't get rid of a baby. But I'm talking about how you have to nurture it and love on it and make sure that it's protected and all of those things. Your life changes when you start a business. So I want to make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons and doing it the right way.
Love it. And we so appreciate you for offering that to our audience, and also just offering your services pro bono, because we know your heart is, of course, in it, and it just speaks to your character and what you're doing. So that is so amazing. You're welcome. And I know that you mentioned earlier the fact that, people, when you're filing these forms, people that are above you that are looking at these forms don't care that you missed something because you didn't know. I kind of wanted you to touch on the fact that the benefits of outsourcing this process.
Yes. I'm glad you said that. Investing is very important. I do nonprofits, but I have a mentor. I meet with her every other week, and I'm always, if I see a consultant that I think is just amazing, I will reach out to them and have them look at my nonprofit, because I'm not above assistance. So when it comes to starting your nonprofit, I would highly advise that you guys do find someone that can assist you with it and then give you like a transition plan. I provide transition plans once I leave you, because once I'm done with you, you still have to run the nonprofit, not me. You have to run it. So with that being said, it is very important to definitely seek consultants or someone that can assist you with running your nonprofit, because if you're going on Google and you're Googling how to start a nonprofit, 9 times out of 10, somebody wrote an article and told you how to start a nonprofit. And how credible are they really? So did they miss something? Did a step get missed? When you go online, most sites do not talk about the attorneys generals. Trust me, I've Googled how to start a nonprofit a million times just to see what pops up. And they don't always have all of the information that you need. But again, the higher ups don't care that something wasn't in an article that you read. So it's really good to seek consultants to really help you and guide you. And even if you don't want someone that's going to do the work for you, but you want to hire someone to just do a consultation with you to make sure that you're doing everything right, I would even advise that. So if you have to pay for 2 hours just to make sure that you're on the right track, do that, and that'll really help. So yes, I definitely agree with getting someone that can assist you with starting your nonprofit if you can. And if you don't have the funding for it, look up people that do stuff pro bono. They are out there.
Amazing. And I just wanted, if you could just talk about some of the transformational stories that you've witnessed with some of the clients that you've had and helped with their business growth.
I've had, when I start these nonprofits, the main thing is it's a shocker. It's definitely a shocker because people do not understand how much work goes into starting a nonprofit at all. Mm-hmm. So I've had clients literally cry just when they got the articles back. The smallest thing, but you're so grateful because it's like, what? This is mine. I'm doing this kind of thing. But I've had clients cry to me. I've had clients, of course, give testimonies in regards to my work ethic, like the organization that I have of it. I'm going to be honest with you guys, I've even had to refund a client because I messed up. I thought I submitted a 501c3 and I didn't. And she contacted me 8 months later and I completely forgot all about her. And that I was like, that will never happen again. But I still processed her documents and I completely 100% refunded her because it was my bad. So, some people try to make it seem like they just perfect out here, but nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect. So I've been able to secure funds for nonprofits. The most I've been able to secure to date is $40,000. So I'm not going to say the billions or in the 100,000s. I'm not there yet. I've only been actually doing the actual nonprofits, helping people do nonprofits as a business for 2 years. So I'm still in my baby stages in some areas, but in some areas, like I'm a beast. So yes. I can say that I've had just the fact that I was able to, and I pride myself on my numbers every year, just the fact that I was able to assist 167 people, that's 160 nonprofits that are going to hopefully change the world. So if they do everything right. So I've had, I've had testimonies, but then I've also had clients who, we've done the nonprofit, we've done the work, we've done everything, and they still want to dissolve it. Just really quick, please make sure if you do not do anything with your nonprofit after a year to 2 years, please dissolve them. Because if not, and you don't do anything with the nonprofit, it's going to get suspended and all these things are going to happen. And when you get ready to buy houses or buy business property or anything like that, it will come back. Trust me, it was going to come back. I had someone that was trying to start a business and was trying to buy a building. He had a nonprofit that he forgot about from 10 to 15 years ago, and he had to pay $20,000 before he could even get that business because that's how much he owed a nonprofit. So if you have a nonprofit or a for-profit and you are not utilizing that, dissolve it. Dissolve it if you can't pay the taxes and you can't keep up with the paperwork. Now, if you just want to just do it just because you want to still keep it because one day, okay, I understand. But I would definitely say dissolving it is so much better because you can always get it back.
Yes, great. That's a great tip. Well, you have given us so much, and I'm sure, like you said, the growth that you've experienced in just the 2 years has been phenomenal. I'm sure that you've had some favorite tools or resources that have helped you in your journey, and if so, what are those?
One my so funny. One of my tools is Dubsado. It's called
Okay.
Dubsado, Dub like boy, Sado, and I love it because it is something that automates my system. It automates everything that I do, which makes my life so much easier. So that's something that I love. I love Canva. I'm not a graphic designer at
Yes.
all, but Canva is amazing. It has so many templates. You would think that you knew how to graphic design if you don't on Canva. So I love Canva. I definitely love Excel. Excel and Google Docs. I like Google Docs more than I like Microsoft Word, just because I don't know. It's just something about it I really like. But I use Excel a lot, especially for budgets and things of that nature. And then I love Loom. Loom is something that you can use to record yourself, record your screen, and you can and I do a lot of tutorials that way so that people can understand how to do stuff. I use Loom. So those are a few tools that I love to use that I'm thinking about what I use like every day that I have to open, and those are things that I utilize every day.
Love it. And we'll be sure to put those in the show notes. And Christy, before you hop off, I want to ask you, what does it mean to you to be Black in business?
What it means for me to be Black in business is empowerment. That's the main word that I could utilize, is empowerment and inspiration, because I am able to empower other individuals who thought that they never could. And I'm just a girl from Compton, and I'm doing it. I grew up with grandparents and things of that nature. I have a story, but to get away from that empowerment and inspiration, I feel like that I empower people, I inspire, but others are an inspiration to me. And just thinking about all the things that we've gone through, or our family or the people that came before us had to go through, for us to be able to do what we do today is inspiring, it's empowering, and it's amazing. So that's what it would mean for me to be Black in business.
Love it. And that is so powerful. And before we hop off, I want to ask you, I know people who are listening are loving this conversation and they want to know how to further connect with you. How can they support you, and how can they find you?
Yes, so you can follow me on Instagram, and it's @_ the Power Legacy, just how it sounds. And if you want to go to my website, it's www.thepowerlegacy.com. And I do have a Twitter @thepowerlegacy.
Amazing. Well, Christy, thank you so much for being on the show. Like I said, you really broke it down. I was over here taking notes, and I know people are going to gain a lot of value from this. So thank you for being here, spreading your knowledge, and just pouring into everyone. So we appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed it.
Such an amazing conversation. We truly appreciate Christy for breaking down all things nonprofits and actually funding and protecting your organization. And I just love how clear and concise she was in reiterating the points to make sure that we understood. What was also really insightful during this conversation is the strategies and plans that have to be in place to fund your organization. And I'm so glad that we were able to also talk about some of the misconceptions that people have about nonprofits. And it's so awesome that you can live a quality life while also doing good for the community. As I mentioned in the beginning, I know that many of you either have a nonprofit, are thinking about starting a nonprofit, or are even considering adding a nonprofit arm to your business. So we wanted to make sure that we can provide you with what you need during the process. We also felt that Christy was the perfect person to bring on to do that. And she was so kind in that in the show, she also mentioned that she is providing a 15% discount to anyone within our audience interested in using her services for their nonprofit journey. All you have to do is use code BLACK2BUSINESS at checkout. But note that this offer is only valid for this year, 2022, if you're listening in real time. So be sure to take advantage of that. And y'all, we are so fortunate to have experts like Christy on the show who are truly bringing it and providing value for you each and every week. As I mentioned before, we really put a lot into making sure that these conversations are valuable for you. And the guests, they really put a lot into making sure that they prepare the valuable information. So please take a few minutes and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts so that we can spread the word about the show and show others the amazing things that are going on, and also show others the amazing things that the guests are doing as well. As always, you can get the full show notes and resources mentioned during this episode at blacktobusiness.com/81. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting, and chat with you next week.